This video is kindly brought to you by the folks over at Geekbuying.com. They sent me out the Creality Ender 3 S1 Pro free of charge. They did not pay me for the review, they just sent me the product. And also for Creality for sending me out some filaments to use and the Somoc pad that will be featured later on in the video. If you're interested in purchasing any of these items, I will be leaving links in the description down below to Geekbuying, where you can buy this printer, filaments, or even the Somoc pad and many other cool accessories and other gadgets alike. Again, links are in the description. So when the printer arrived, I quickly just unboxed it, removed all of the parts from the box, spread it out on the table, and after about 10 to 15 minutes it was fully assembled and ready to go. Something pretty cool about the Ender 3, in this case the S1 Pro, that I hadn't seen before was the light on top. It can be turned on and off to your personal preference. There's just a small switch at the top on the side, so if you don't want a bright light on, you can simply just turn it on without going through some menus on the screen, but just press of a button. So the first print was done after leveling the bed. It was just one of the prints included on the SD card, nothing special. It came out perfect and looked really nice, so I could simply just move on to using it for something actually usable on one of my projects, and that is a small spacer for my Porsche 911 that I built a little while ago. So it was simply just designed in Tinkercad, took a couple of minutes, shaped it and also sized it to correctly fit the part, and then just slid it in, glued it in place, and that created a perfect spacer with the perfect offset for my build. And this is just one example of the ways I use FDM printers on my builds. I also create tools, and in this case you can also create full kits. Now they will not be as nice and smooth as resin prints will, but they are still a lot more functional, a lot stronger, and a lot less fragile, but that's already said when it's stronger, of course. So. Well, nonetheless, this is not for me, so I'm not going to be fully assembling it. It is for a friend who is a ginormous F1 fan. I just simply printed all of the parts in various different colors to test out some filaments and also put the printer through its paces. This design is made by the Gearhead Factory over on Cults3D and Instagram. I will be leaving links to his page down below. He kindly sent me the files to use on this video and for testing purposes on the printer to show you guys, of course. So a couple hours and a couple kilos of 3D printing filament later, various different colors, the silver, the black, also the red, and even some carbon fiber look, pretty much just a gunmetal, were all printed, and I test assembled a couple of parts, not fully pressing all of them in place as I disassemble it again for my friend to do it himself. So during some of the parts I did not correctly slice some, so they failed, and I stopped them prematurely before finishing and remove it or using a lot more filaments. But this also shows a really nice example of the infill that is really nicely done, and also the smoothness of the parts that come out with a 0.1 layer height. Even on an FDM printer it still looks really nice and smooth. So all of the parts that you can see here were just pre-assembled and nothing finally glued in place. That is not up to me, but that is for my friend to do. But overall, a really cool project and also a nicely finished model in the end after assembling it all. So after putting the printer through its paces on the regular settings, straight out of the box, no fine-tuning whatsoever, I also received the Creality Somoc pad. Now to put it really simply, this is just a computer that replaces the computers in the printer, has a lot better computers in there that can process the information and data a lot faster, and therefore also have the printer be able to print a lot faster than with the computers that are inside of the printer. Now there's nothing wrong with those computers, they are perfectly fine, so to speak, and work really well, but the computers in this Somoc pad just have a lot more speed of processing, and therefore being capable of sending the information faster and having the printer be able to print a lot faster. Now this is an add-on to the printer and not fully required, or not required at all. It is just in order to make printers faster, have you produce parts faster. Specifically, if you print a lot of these things, this can help out save a lot of time and potentially make more money if you are selling your parts and relying on speed of print. I'm not going to go through the full installation of the Somoc pad. It is really easy. You simply just follow the steps on the Somoc pad itself, select the printer, and go through all of the steps, and it's pretty much done in a matter of minutes. Now if you don't want to use this, you can simply just use the printer as it is, like I said before. But if you do want to use it, do take into consideration that this is still being fine-tuned and does require updating pretty regularly with new features coming out and also some fixes being put through the machine, as some of the printing times that are displayed are at 0, so it should be done, but it actually took a lot more time before it was finished, so those are not really accurate yet, but that is just a minor gremlin to take into consideration. Otherwise, it shows a really nice set of specs from the printer during the print and keeps you up to date on what is going on, and it works really well. So if you would be interested in one of those, again, links will be in the description. After I set up the Somoc pad, I tested a couple of different filaments with the same file and the same setting to see if that would make any difference. It pretty much printed the exact same way, same mistakes, same faults here and there, and is a really consistent finish. Now, due to it being a lot faster than normal, you will have to take into consideration that some of the settings might need to be adjusted, and in this case I think the heated bed was set a little too hot, so some of the bottom layers are not really aligning super well, but overall the finish on the parts and the details are still captured super well, and I have no real big complaints for it here, as it did save about 20 minutes on the total print time. On some other parts, again, I've sped it up to 200%. This is the fast setting that is used with these Somoc pads, and you can also speed it up even faster, but I will be getting back to that later on. The finish on the layers is super smooth, no problems there. The bigger the parts, maybe the bigger the problems will become, but on these smaller pieces, it was able to capture all of the small fine details and print out a really nice smooth part, as you can see here on this Marshall logo. As I touched on earlier, the basic reason for buying one of these Somoc pads is to have prints go a lot faster, but still have the clean finish that you want, so you would need to do a lot of testing in order to find the exact settings that are best for you and the exact finish you are looking for in your parts. So the first test cube that I did was done at 100%. That is basically the standard setting of the printer. That looked really well. All of the edges were nice and smooth, all of the lettering and detailing was really nicely done, and the top finishing was done too in a super nice finish and a pretty high standard for one of these printers. Now on the second one, I sped it up to 200%. That cut about 30% of the print time off, as the total print time does take into consideration that the machine needs to heat up. It is not looking as good as the original one, but there were a couple of mistakes here and there down to my own mistakes in some of the G-code that I filled in incorrectly, and therefore the print nozzle stopped at the final position of the print and didn't move back to the homing position. But again, that's my fault, so that's why one of the pieces was broken a little bit. And then moving on to the 300%, looks pretty much the same. 400%, some of the corners are getting a little worse, but overall pretty much the same. And then I even sped it up to 500 and 600%, and that is where the parts kind of started failing. Some of the edges and corners started looking pretty horrible, and the finishing overall did go down a lot. So I think between 200 and 400% speed would be the perfect setting for me on one of these. And just for comfortability, I think 200 is the sweet spot in this case. It speeds up the prints a lot, but does remain with a really nicely finished part. Now that's it for the testing, so those can go out of the way. I also printed some big parts to see if it was still doing a good job filling out pretty much the entire build plate, and it was. These are just some desk organizers that you can stack. You can even print more and stack it higher. There are, again, a couple of small mistakes or small imperfections, so to speak, on a couple of these tighter corners and edges, and with it going a lot higher, some of the vibrations did leave a little bit of an uneven surface on these higher corners, but overall still pretty good. And as you can see, it just clips out from the bottom one, and the entire build plate was pretty much filled with this one. It is really nice and flat, didn't use or deform anything whatsoever, and the entire part stuck to the build plate really well. And after cooling off, you can just simply slide it off, so that is a really good point for this printer as well, with a super nice bed. That's it for me on this one. If you are interested in purchasing one of these, I will be leaving links down in the description below to Geekbuying, and also for the Somoc pad and some of the other products, links will be in the description.